And there we go. Welcome everybody to Be a Game Changer 2.0. This is our last session for this round, and we have had a great time getting a message here. People can't hear me, so let me go back and make sure everything's on. I'm going to go back to my colleagues and say, yes, it looks like it's working now, so we're good. Thank you. This is our final sessions for the Be a Game Changer series. It's been an exciting time with lots of learning. We hope that you've enjoyed and have learned a lot as well along the way. We want to welcome you, and I'm going to turn it over to some of my colleagues who are going to mention some of the details about sponsorship, etc.
Good evening. So we've got the Game Changers series, and this series is brought to you by a grant that was provided by the Ministry of Education, and it was provided by Technology Enabled Learning in Ontario. As well, in the spirit of PPM 159, Collaborative Professionalism, these sessions have been hosted by a whole bunch of Toronto area school boards, including all those that you see: Toronto District, Toronto Catholic, Halton Public, Peel District, Upper Grand, Wellington Catholic, Dufferin Peel Catholic, as well as the provincial schools.
Well, tonight we're going to be reviewing and creating a summary of the global competencies, and we extracted these global competencies from a document published by the ministry. It's in draft form, called the 21st Century Competencies. It was published in the winter of 2016, and there's a picture of it here on the slide, but if you'd like to gain access to it, you can get there through the EduGains website. Tonight, we'd love to hear from you. Do that a couple of ways, and one of them is through our Twitter hashtag, which is hashtag BEAGC, which is short for Be a Game Changer. We'll be on Twitter, and we'll be responding to questions, and we'll also be pulling some of them into this conversation. We'd love to keep this conversation going, as well as in the YouTube channel that you're watching on the right-hand side. We'll be watching the dialogue in there, and again, love to hear your comments, your questions, ideas, resources, and bringing them in to this collaborative event.
So our journey so far, we have started with a keynote by Sir Ken Robinson, and we have covered all of the global competencies, including learning to learn, critical thinking and problem solving, innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship, global citizenship, collaboration, communication. And we have archived all of those videos that we had in our Game Changer community, an e-community. The link is there. We will send that out via Twitter a little bit later as well, and it'll be on at the end. So tonight, we've decided to approach this a little differently than we have previously. We are going to go through a summary of what we've done in each of the competencies, and we've invited some new faces and some old faces, not meaning old in age, but some experienced people that have been with us before, to share again about how they are enacting the competencies in their classrooms. So because of that, we're going to have people coming in and out of the sessions tonight. We hope that you have some great questions to share with them, and we hope you find that their sharing of their stories is powerful and impactful to you. It is important to note, though, that there are many different approaches to representing the competencies. So while we are highlighting a handful of individuals and we're talking about what it looks like in certain classrooms, we know that many teachers approach them differently and are doing great things in their classrooms. So this is not meant to be a how-to, it's more meant to be an inspiration and to hopefully spur you to try to do something new and different in your own classroom. And with that, we're going to start. We're going to go through the competencies in the same order that we covered them throughout the year. And so we are going to go to Learning to Learn. And we have brought back Michelle Hollingsworth. She was one of our presenters during the original Learning to Learn session. And we had great feedback from you regarding her. So we thought we'd invite her back and learn a little bit more about what she does and how she does it. She did send that picture there of students working at their desks. And so we are going to turn it over to Michelle.
Hello and good evening. So I was brought back to talk about learning to learn, and asked to do so from both a teacher and a student perspective. And so from the teacher perspective, for me, it's been an incredible journey of learning to identify what it is that I want to get out of my students, and then trying new things and putting things into place, and then revisiting all of those learning experiences to be able to see if I'm meeting my students' needs, how I'm meeting their needs, and to go back and revisit and revamp what we were working on. As a result, right now I'm working on learning maps for my students, and I am now on version 3. Because as I keep going back, I keep noticing the different pieces and trying to layer the different supports that are needed for students of all ranges of learning. And so while speaking to colleagues and working with friends and sending them out and getting feedback and really cultivating that community of learning around what I'm expecting to see from my students, I've been able to get a lot of feedback on what that might look like for them. So that's been an incredible journey for me. An amazing journey for my students is actually watching them learn how to identify what good learning looks like, what good work looks like, as they've been going through this progression in the semester. This began the first semester of last year. And at this point, we've now run a full semester with a program and a framework in place. And the level of understanding and the level of students being able to identify and speak to their own learning has been incredible. I've had students who generally struggle in an academic class being able to pick up individual learning skills because I can work up with them on a one-to-one basis more frequently in a classroom where the learning is self-directed and the students get to come at science from a point of view of interest. So, for example, I had a student build a car and then be able to share his understanding of electricity with other students who he would normally be the person going to for help and actually support them through their learning, which was an amazing experience for this young man. And what it's done since then has really given him more of a voice in our classroom so that he can actually answer questions, support students, and he's even taking that beyond our room into other classrooms, and I'm getting feedback from his other teachers about that. So what this does for us is, because we're looking at the learning from a very individualized perspective, because the students have this opportunity to find their own entry point in this science inquiry, I'm able to manipulate my learning plan specifically for them so I can identify their next step. And what that does for me and for the student is puts those steps in manageable gauges so that they can experience success a little bit more frequently than they perhaps would in a large classroom setting. And as a result, I'm being able to see them really progress through their program in a way that's very, very effective for them. It teaches them perseverance. It teaches them the ability to ask for help, which is such a difficult thing for young students to do. And it's been pretty incredible. I'm actually pretty impressed with the way that those things have been going. As I look back on what learning to learn looks like from the document, it really does promote that idea of growth mindset and allows students to set their own goals and recognize what it is that they want out of the learning and be able to really work and strive for their best success. And it allows them to really build that resilience in learning, which is often missing in high school because it's the first time that learning gets tough for a lot of students. And so by being able to work in group projects and support each other and ask each other for help and take the learning back to their own comfort zones, we've been really able to make some large leaps and bounds in getting them to where they need to be. So it's been a really neat experience.
That's great. I just had one quick question. I know the last time you were here, and it was quite impactful to many of our people, including some who are at the ministry, but I know you're at a new school. And I know that this fits in with the overall philosophy of the school. And so if teachers were trying to do this one-on-one, perhaps without that support, I think there may be a slightly different take or approach to it. So I hope you might speak about the philosophy of the school and how this has enabled you to do this, number one. And number two, if you were at a different school, how might you maneuver your classroom space or your political sphere to enact similar types of learning? Because obviously it's been great for you and your students.
Right. So the school that I'm at, the philosophy of the school is putting students in the driving seat of their own learning and making them very aware of what learning looks like and how it's actually not always successes. It's actually the failures that we learn from, and we accept and embrace that. This made it very, very easy for me to then go in and dive into the deep end, into this inquiry process and reimagining what science might look like from that framework. Because our school is also very small at the moment, it also allowed for me to be able to do that a little bit more easily than you would in a standard school or a school that's been established for quite some time. If I was to now look at taking what I'm doing at the moment and translate that into a school that is quite established with an established program, you can do it in small steps. You can try it with particular pieces, but the recognition has to come that the students are learning a brand new process. So the very first time they do it, it's not going to look pretty, and that's okay, and that's part of the learning. So they do need chances to repeat and retry this. So I have been talking with other schools in Peel about trying it with single section courses to get it established, or trying it with the applied students in the applied stream, because they actually succeed even better at this, because for them, learning has always been a little bit tough. And so working through a learning process is something they've actually practiced quite a lot. And the leaps and bounds that you see in that stream is actually quite significant and kind of neat. And so that would be the way that I would start it out. Look at implementing it in that grade 9 single section area, and then watch as you can grow the program with the students as they go through, because it really, you will then be able to see the impact of the gains on understanding and enjoying and tweaking the learning for those students.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Michelle. That was wonderful. And with that, I'm very cognizant of time. We want to keep things moving. So we're going to be moving on to critical thinking and problem solving. And I'm looking for my colleagues to see, I'm not sure who will be mentioning or coming through this. So I'm not seeing anybody. So certainly we did spend some time doing critical thinking and problem solving. We had some guests that we had invited tonight, and unfortunately at the last minute we're unable to make it, but we do have a video, and we're gonna see, again, one of the things that we try to model for our, for the people that are watching, is that sometimes things work and sometimes you try something new. So we're gonna see how this video plays out right now. We're going to hope that you can see it. I'm going to look to my colleagues on our back channel to say, can we see the video?
Hi,
I'm not seeing anybody. We can see the video, so we'll play this.
I'm the TeLT content from Halton District School Board. My name is Tanya Williamson. I'm the DELC for the Halton District School Board. We're here to talk to you about critical thinking and problem solving. And we apologize that we're not here live, but we have made this video so that we can share and summarize what we had talked about in our virtual Game Changers series. We focused on critical thinking and problem solving. And in our presentation, our focus was really about asking questions and getting teachers to help students ask critical questions.
The components that we really focused on that night was the asking questions. It was taking concrete steps to address issues, usually based on a question that they asked, inquiring, interpreting information that they've gathered so they can make decisions based on, or make some conclusions based on the question they've asked. Also, we looked at engaging in inquiry process to solve problems, and then making connections and transferring learning from one situation to another. We modeled one way that this can be done. We just really want to stress that. We modeled a way that you could kind of do start to finish sort of inquiry process, but just so you know that this can be done such a variety of ways. So just one example.
So in our example, we showed a video about the big bad wolf being boiled alive. And we had teachers generate questions based on the video. And the questions were different based on teacher background, their subject area. And the whole point of our presentation was to have teachers come up with a question and then try and figure out how they're going to solve the problem or gain answers to those questions. So we modeled that process that they could use with students in their classroom.
part of that modeling was once they had asked the question or came up with a question, we were looking at different ways that you could help students do some research. So one of the ways that we were showing was using a Google custom search that helps students look up information, interpret. With the world of the internet these days, there's so much information students have to wade through. So it's nice to help students figure out how to interpret that information and analyze it to help make those decisions or conclusions.
So this is one way to engage in critical thinking and problem solving. We have some examples from 2 senior math teachers, and they illustrate how a different way that they approach critical thinking and problem solving in their classrooms. First is Jamie Mitchell, who is a math teacher at Hayden. Second is Janet Juby, who is a math teacher at Burlington Central High School. So we hope that you enjoy watching their videos.
And just the one last thing about it to point out, though, too, is that in both ways, both teachers, they did the critical thinking. They did both the critical thinking problem solving, but in a different way. Jamie really focused on the interpretation of data to answer questions the students came up with. The other teacher, Janet Juby, she also did kind of using data and making decisions, but then she also made connections and transferring learning from one situation to another. So both doing similar but really different, but both in that critical thinking problem solving.
Yeah, with Jamie's piece, the students generated questions throughout the game. With Janet, she provided students with a problem to solve, and then the questions were generated by the students as they worked together to solve the problem.
Great, so enjoy our videos. Thank you. Hi, I'm Laura McKay. I'm the
Sorry. So again, we're working through some of the videos and the technical pieces. So here's the video from Jamie Mitchell. I will start that and we will get that live to you.
Hi, Jamie. This is Jamie Mitchell. He is a teacher at Frank Hayden Secondary School with the Halton District School Board, and he's going to talk a little bit about how he develops critical thinking and problem-solving skills in his classroom. Take it away, Jamie.
Yeah, that's a big question, and I struggled with where to start answering this question. My best answer would be to tell a little bit of a story about what we do with some of our senior math students at the school. We play a game, everyone calls it the fun game. It's a glorified game of tag, but it lasts the whole.
Hi, everyone. I think we've lost the sound there. We might have lost Patrick. I'm gonna.
Sorry, I'm just, when I saw the notice about sound, I'm now trying to correct it. So maybe we'll try this one more time, and I'll look to my colleagues to see how it goes.
The critical thinking skills and the inquiry skills. Why are we playing this in math class anyway? And that there is and stuff like that, and through those conversations we kind of drive
So we're getting some, I'm hearing from my colleagues in the background that while the sound sort of cut in and out, And I'm not sure on the video itself, it seems to, there's certainly a dip in the sound. So in the interest of ensuring that it's a valuable experience for everyone, I'm going to look to my colleagues. I think perhaps we can upload these videos and people can watch them. Well, I'm hearing now audio is back on. So I'm going to look to Joe and people and say, one more try. Nod your head, one more try. We'll try one more time and see how it goes.
Inquiry into the data later on. So once the game's over, we start looking at the data set, and students ask their own questions and students find their own answers, and we have just great conversations.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
No
Much
problem.
appreciated.
So again, as you know, tech doesn't always work the way that we plan. So I'm sorry about the sound quality in and out there. We certainly will have that in eCommunity for people to listen to. And as I was listening, there was certainly a back and forth nature about the sound. It sort of dipped. So I'm not sure if it was the audio in the video itself or what the issue was. I'm going to look here to my colleagues. There was one other video. I'm happy to try it and see how we land, or to see how, or to simply move on to our next live speaker. I'm looking. Not a lot of movement there. I'm going to make the executive decision. We're going to move on to the next live speaker because they are here, and I apologize to those people who did submit their video. And again, we will have it posted in eCommunity, and you'll be able to watch it live there. So we are now going to move on to Zelia, who will be speaking to us. Zelia, I'm just going to ask for 1 minute while I pull the power slides back up and I figure out how to make this happen the way that we're hopeful. I believe that you had some slides. Did you have slides? I'm going to look to you to nodding yes.
Actually, no, I'm going to share if that's okay.
Wonderful.
Do a screen share. I'm going to start off by, I thank you for the opportunity to be here. I've been asked to share how I use inquiry, creativity, and entrepreneurship in my class program. And really, it's an opportunity for students to use the empathy approach to the user needs through social entrepreneurship. And this is all done within a co-teaching program I have with my colleague, Kamala Ramran. We call it Business Day. It is actually our entire second term of learning, with the exception of perhaps 2 science strands, as it encompasses all aspects of a transdisciplinary approach, where we are intentionally trying to find a spark in each student, something that ignites their interests and passions, and a problem that they want to solve, and how will they use or leverage technology to address those issues that they want to solve or to communicate in their community. It provides also opportunities for them to see how their learning experiences in their subjects are transferable, not only in school, but in life experiences outside of the school. What's nice about entrepreneurship is that it creates an opportunity for students to be motivated in being agents of change and address their own personal goals as well as learning goals that they have set for themselves in school. And a big part of this particular entrepreneurship venture is that students have opportunities to showcase and share their learning outside of our school venue so that they have the opportunity to inspire peers as well as educators. And a lot of this is done through the global competencies, of course, developing those, the design thinking process and inquiry, where students are posed with a question. So I'm going to show you their Google site. Just give me 1 moment. So this is a Google site that one team put together. There are several teams. Can you see it there?
Yes.
Wonderful. So in this Google site, this particular company would call themselves Sweet Circuits. Students wanted to, as an extension for their measurement unit. And again, I have several IEP students in my class, so they range in terms of their learning experiences and academic background. They really were excited about measurement and baking. So they wanted to bake a product, a recipe that they created, but they also wanted to tie in the science, where they created paper circuits, and they wrapped the cupcake with a paper circuit and a little light LED at the end of a motivational quote, so that you can have a treat and be motivated as well. But in this environment, you can see that the students had full creative control and shared their learning. I could go to, let's go to the design thinking. So this is their site. They were posed with a problem. We were just talking about recent events and events that have been around for quite some time, and has anything changed? And the students came up with this question: how might we support We Movement to raise funds and spread awareness about families in Haiti impacted by the 2010 earthquake in an innovative way? And through the design thinking process, the students came up with several ideas. And this group, again, decided to go with the motivational paper circuit cupcake approach. And they baked several things. So what was great about this is that they took ownership. They contacted local businesses for recipe ideas, for donations of
Oh, so Zelly, I'm not sure. I seem to have lost you, and I'm looking to my colleagues here. So it looks like maybe you've having some internet issues. So again, you never know what the technology is going to do. So I not hearing anything. Guessing she got booted.
Patrick, do we want to move on to the next speaker and maybe come back if she comes back in?
That's what I was hoping. Were you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Sorry, my apologies. I'm trying to follow the feed in the background as well.
Nope.
And so, Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you since you know our next speaker.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'd like to introduce Melissa Roth. She's been doing some tremendous work with a lot of, or with some grade 7 students. She was at our global citizenship session a few weeks ago. And again, it was just a tremendous, tremendous feedback on the work that she's done. And so I'd like to turn it over to Melissa to just speak a little bit about global citizenship and kind of recap some of that tremendous work that she's been doing with that grade 7 class. Melissa.
Hi, Sean. Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Thanks for having me back. So I was here a couple weeks ago, but you wouldn't have seen me. I was kind of behind the screen. I'd like to kind of have my students jump in there first. They really enjoyed speaking to you all and were very excited to watch themselves the next day and talk to the other kids in the class about their experience. We spent a lot of time this year working on global citizenship through doing global read aloud, Skype chats, Hangouts, working with the Canadian Craft Project with Jacqueline Calder and Julie Balin. And it was really neat for me to talk to the kids about what they saw as being their takeaways from doing activities that help us interact with people from outside our 4 classroom walls. So their feedback was, and I'm going to share more of that than my own, although there is a lot of my own benefits to this, but their feedback is that they feel they're able to see different perspectives from other kids, that they feel like they have more than one teacher. So they talk a lot about how Ms. Calder is one of their teachers, about how Ms. Balin's one of their teachers. Ms. Apgar and Mr. Hamilton have come into our classroom through video, and they got pretty excited when Ms. Apgar showed up at our school the one day. So they see it as being not just a teacher physically in the classroom, but that they have multiple teachers. Other things that they've talked a lot about and the benefits that they've had is they talk about their ability to learn from many different people, but also see different perspectives. I'm seeing my kids doing a natural inquiry, asking questions based on what they're hearing other people say, and being very inquisitive about what they're seeing in different areas of the world. And they see themselves as having lots of classmates, not just within our classroom, but classmates that they worked with in other schools around the province and in other schools in the United States or globally as well, which is pretty neat. They've talked a lot about, as students, we have a lot of discussions about what's appropriate for an online setting when you're working in an academic setting versus when you're working just when you're chatting with a friend. So we talk a lot about that too. And they really appreciate, and one of the things I thought was really neat was how they talked about they really appreciate having these opportunities, but also having a chance to, they liked being able to share with everybody as other teachers that they wanted people to know that they liked when people took risks. And they were okay with us failing. And they see me fail a lot, and they're okay with that. They actually find it quite entertaining. And they, I appreciate the fact that they take risks more so themselves. So as a teacher, I'm seeing benefits in my students having all those different perspectives, but also being able to share with other kids really well and share with other teachers really well online, because their communication skills have improved greatly. And also the risk-taking has improved greatly. So that would be just a little summary of some of the benefits that I'm seeing of global citizenship in our classroom. But yeah, it's really valuable, and it's pretty neat for me to see the kids really trying to promote it, and they see themselves as being people or students who are promoting it now, which is neat as well. It's very empowering.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm just, oh, I think we got, I believe we have Zelia back. Are there any questions for Melissa? I'm just looking to see. We have questions for Melissa?
You explained so well that there are no questions.
Yes, it's true. It really is awesome, and I know again we've shown that video to a couple different people, and, you know, and the feedback is tremendous. The stuff that those students are doing in Melissa's class is just, it's really awesome. And I know I was blown away, and as you were saying, the one student, just take a chance. It was very touching. So if you haven't had a chance to see that video, you need to go back and you need to see those students, and you need to see the authentic, genuine interest in what they're doing. It really is awesome.
I do have a question. With Melissa, in terms of Melissa, does she blog, first of all, and if she does, or where can we learn more and read up on it? Because we know you get a snippet of it here, and it sounds fantastic. But just to kind of learn from you, and as you say, going by the seat of your pants and learning, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about as you go a little bit deeper into the area and how your students are benefiting from this as well.
So I do blog, not all the time or consistently, but I have a blog, learningedtech.com is where I put my stuff. And then my class also has a Twitter account at 7C Tweets. And on there, we have a running record of everything that we're doing in the classroom and the interactions that we do as well. And I sort of document everything that's going on in the classroom as well. And we use that as a way to kind of have a window into what we're doing. So I sometimes do write about what we've been doing. So I did write about their experience a couple weeks ago when they were online on my blog. And then the students also wrote about their ideas. So all of the kids that couldn't be here a couple weeks ago actually wrote about it. So the students, the 13 students that presented and spoke, they were kind of the voice for the other kids that couldn't be here, because there's 29 in our class. So they were the voice of those students. So all of the kids though had shared a document and wrote their ideas in it. So that is also shared on Twitter on their account as well. The Twitter account is from as best as it can be from their perspective. So I try to, even though I'm the one tweeting, I try to have it coming out from their thoughts on what's going on in the classroom. So it's kind of authentic. I usually try to sit in the background. I don't usually come in front of the camera. So this is new for me.
That's great. Thank you.
I'm just going to add before we move on, and I'm going to go back to Sean to go back to Zelia. But your Twitter handle and the Twitter handle for all of the individuals that are presenting tonight are actually in the slide deck that we're going to post in eCommunity. So we will get that information out, and I know if they follow you that you've got lots of hashtags and things in yours in particular. And I also put the link to your website that you mentioned in the chat pod on the YouTube channel. So, and I think Zelia looks like she's back.
I'm not sure when I got cut off. But I just wanted to share the students' Google site just to show you how that environment they created, they posted all their work, they took full ownership because they found this to be an authentic situation where they knew they were making a difference in the community. And that entrepreneurship allowed them to do that. It made asking questions important to them. And when they weren't getting the answers they were looking for, they asked better questions. And it was so much better for them to discover that on their own versus me telling them how to create a good question or giving them those questions. And so they were really invested in that learning. I am sharing resources and student reflections of this whole journey in a site as part of my Google Innovator project, just so that I have learned so much this year from other educators, and I want to share what I've been learning with other educators as well. And it's this site called DICE EDU, and really it's focusing on developing the inquiry, creativity, and entrepreneurship so that students can really be invested not only in their learning, but making a difference within their communities.
Sorry, Melissa, is that the ExcelNet computer education site?
Actually, that's my own Google site where I'm going to be sharing resources and how my co-teaching partner and I have created this project for our students over the past 13 years. And we're going to be collecting resources from other teachers who are willing to share how they've started integrating this particular global competency into their own classrooms so that students can feel more invested in their learning.
Wonderful. I just wanted to make sure that was the site. I've uploaded it to the live chat so that others can click on it and see it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So, and with that, I'm going to I'm looking back again here and say, were there any specific questions at this point? I'm not seeing, we've had great luck and great presentations so far. And so I haven't seen any questions here, and I'm not seeing my colleagues jumping in with anything, so I haven't missed anything. And so I think we'll just continue on with the evening. I'm going to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
To you, Zelia. And I think then thank you to Melissa as well. And we're going to move on to
I think we might have lost Patrick. I believe next up is collaboration with Melanie Mulcaster. Melanie, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi. So I'm just going to introduce you quickly. A teacher librarian who slightly obsessed with the Hunger Games, reading and learning, with technology and running and laughter. And so we'd just like to invite you to speak a little bit about collaboration, some of the stuff you've been doing, and some of the experiences you have with your students.
All right, so everyone can hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Good?
yep.
Okay, awesome. My big focus is on the maker movement and establishing a maker culture in our school. And sometimes I'm really hesitant to use the term maker space because even though I guess technically our Library Learning Commons does have a maker space, I don't like to limit making in that environment. And I think that every space, and it is our goal as teachers, that every space should be a maker space. Making should not be just limited. With that in mind, and I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. I'll be looking at my notes. With that in mind, what we're really looking at is develop a making culture in our school, and we're learning for different ways on how the staff and students can collaborate and look for opportunities. Is that me? That's not me.
Patrick, you just
looking for okay, perfect. Looking for opportunities where we can collaborate and facilitate making experiences, but linking them to curricular expectations. And really, in our maker culture, it's not about making the product. It's more about focusing about what happens during the process. Process over product, and where's the deep learning lie in how it's communicated, how it's shared, and how we grow and learn from each other. Things that we've done. So this was my first year in primary at a K-8 school. I've been in a 6-8 school most of my life. So that was a real big switch for me. So what I started doing, just to get to know the students and to know the teachers, I used the force of reading books as provocations for making. And what I would do is we would read the story, and then we would design different learning, different making experience using digital and non-digital tools that students could explore. And it really led to some great learning, and it led to some collaborations. The kindergartens then wanted to learn how to use Scratch Junior. So we paired up with the grade 4s with our kindergarten students to get the grade 4s to teach the kindergarten students how to use Scratch. We've been using a lot of loose parts to create based on what we've read, and from creating with loose parts like buttons or just create something related to the story, we took that into creative writing and had students write stories after that, and that was really, really popular. We've also started moving into problem-based learning or design inquiry learning, where we take a certain topic. For example, our grade 5s are learning about energy transformations. What is one form of energy? How does it transform to another? So we use the prompts like, how might we create a blank to serve a certain purpose? So it really gets students thinking, how am I going to design and create a product that's going to fit a certain need or function? And those are the kinds of things that we're exploring. And again, I think it's really just, again, focusing on that process, what learning comes out, how can we encourage our students to be creative with the how might we statements, because it gives them the opportunity to choose the tools and to choose the skill sets that they're most comfortable with and that best meets their learning goals or their learning needs. Any questions?
I have a question for you, Melanie. You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So do you have any maybe advice for a teacher that may have said, I want to get going on this and create a maker movement, or not a maker space, but I want to start asking those questions? And I think we can all relate. You ask the kids the question. I know there's many factors missing is where I'm going with this, and you prompt the students for that question. And I'm from the secondary level, so you ask the question and the kids just sit there. And so you sound like you've created an environment of empowerment. And I know we kind of keep engagement on the back end, with empowerment being a much more powerful term, and that, in getting those kids up and going. Do you have any strategies for a teacher to get them going, so that when they want to go and dip their toe in this, and they are successful, not thinking like, I tried it, the kid just didn't want to do it, and it was unsuccessful?
Certainly, I do have those experiences a lot, but I think there's, at some point, we have to introduce tools to students, because I think they don't know what they don't know. So I start with these small non-digital tools, like I might start with squishy circuits, which is using Play-Doh and batteries and lights, and see where that leads. And then I might lead to something else, or even, what can you do with popsicle sticks? Can you make a catapult? Non-digital tools, see what conversation engages, and then move on forward. Would you be interested in trying this? Or just showing them a video of something before you make that purchase. Because I've purchased Raspberry Pis in the past and students were not interested in them at all, and it wasn't an effective use of our money. So again, start small and build big.
So thank you very much, Melanie.
Thank you.
I think I'm back. Certainly the tech will not fail us this evening. And so with that, certainly the maker movement has been a huge influence currently. And I think really you've articulated well the challenges one faces and the impact one can have leveraging sort of concepts along that line. I'm going to look to my colleagues for communication. We're moving back to Duffer & Peel and to Andy Cleason, who's going to be leading us through some communication components. And Did you need any slides up, or is it just, are you?
I'll pull up the slides, correct.
Pull up the slides, thank you.
So Patrick, I'm talking about the ones from the PowerPoint themselves. Did you want to bring those up, or do you want me to just, I have them here too, I can just talk to them if you like. Like, you know, the PowerPoint we talked about.
If you would like to start, I'll get them up in a moment. I'm just having some technical issues.
Not a problem, of course I can start. So when it comes to communication and communication skills, we know there's a slew of different types of skills that are out there, and there's all kinds of theories as to have strong communication skills, you should show proficiency in this, and this is being X, Y, Z. And we talk about some examples being writing skills, listening skills, verbal skills. You have your verbal skills, your nonverbal skills, your body language, presentation skills. I mean, the list goes on, and it breaks down within those categories and the subcategories. We know that in terms of in terms of global competencies, and there they go. In terms of the global competencies, we are trying to say that our students, as they move forward, should have proficiency in communication skills in this global connected environment, especially this digital world. Now, right back for the days when we all started back in the Faculty of Ed, they really promoted the communication skills. It was so important to try to develop these skills in our students, but also us as teachers through things like questioning styles and things like that. I just want to touch base, the person before us to talk a little about collaboration, and quite often people put these two areas together and they overlap them. I just want to take a moment and separate them from each other, collaboration and communication. Whereas we know as communication just being some kind of information being transferred from the sender and then is picked up by the receiver on the other end. And I mentioned a whole bunch of examples a moment ago being verbal and nonverbal skills. But that is your communication, where collaboration is basically when you're coming together as a group to try to create some kind of purpose and move something forward. But an example of people would maybe confuse those two, and I'll just bring up an example because we are talking about technology here and using something like Twitter, and to say it's a great collaboration tool. I mean, there's components of it where you can use it for a great collaboration tool, but it's often merely a communication tool. Whereas I'm going to tweet something out to the universe, and those who are following it are going to pick that up, and they're going to receive that information. Communication, just a form of communication, but collaboration, really not working towards something unless we move into, like, I guess, a hashtag conversation and try to collaborate on some type of something. So that said, and I think I've lost my slide, Patrick, but I'm going to, can you move to the next slide, please? I'm not seeing it showing up there, and it's the slide. Basically, there's a slide there. It has 7 components to it, and I can just talk to it. I'm seeing a black screen right now, so it's okay. I'll look over to a side channel that I have going on here.
It's being displayed. We can see it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Joe. So in terms of communication, we know that I mentioned there's all kinds of different skills that are out there, but in terms of this document that we're basing the series upon, they look at communication as 7 different categories. I'm going to very quickly take you through these things, but at the end of these, I'm going to give you a link to which will link to our presentation that we had 2 weeks ago, and we've packaged all this together, and we've tied into them definitions, curriculum connections, pedagogical connections, so you can really get an understanding of how you can apply each one of these things. So not just high level, which I'm going to present to you or communicate with you right now. The first one talked about communication effectively, communicates effectively in different contexts, in oral and written form. We know this happens, and we talk about that in terms of whether it be body language or through music or through our voice and the different languages, that there is this ongoing transfer of information between one and the other. Nothing new there. The example that we use in our presentation, we really go into some real examples at different grade level and how you can bring this out in your students. Second point says we can ask effective questions to acquire knowledge. And when we talked about this 2 weeks ago, we talked about the open versus closed questions and say that there's a time and a place for both. But often the open questions, often tied, but not always tied to the higher levels of thinking, the what if questions, and get students to explain, as I believe as Melanie talked about a minute ago, that gets those kids to, through the makerspace movement, the maker movement, to get them to go deeper in the conversation and to communicate their answers a little bit more. Not to saying that it is always in that case. I mean, an open-ended question could be, what are all the things you're going to go when you're going to shop for today at the grocery store, and you run off a list, and there's an open question, but maybe not a very challenging one. But the example where we brought this up and the importance of it, in fact, we ran a session today in our board where we talked to some teachers who were in an e-learning course, and they were saying, how do I get communication to happen with my students? And we were saying, in a course, you start small. So I'm getting some feedback in there. One of the examples was, one of the things we would do is we would say, when you communicate with your students for those questions, maybe have open-ended questions, whether it's all answers are safe. And students can therefore, no matter what they say, it's a safe environment. Maybe they're not very long-winded answers, but just getting them used to communicate with one another in the classroom. And as the course builds, then you start to go a little bit deeper into those communications and those communication components, asking those questions. Point number 3 talks about the communication using a variety of media. I mean, traditional ways would be things like essay, newspapers, newsletters, and other forms of letters. But more modern ways talks about social media sites that are out there, whether it be Twitter, as we mentioned, or YouTube. And there's a whole plethora of resources today that we can help our students. And is it a bad thing? We're often asked, why do we need to show them more than one? And we say with these students in a global context, it only will benefit them, we feel, that they can learn different areas and how to communicate in these different tools. More importantly, once they know how to communicate in those areas, the next point, number 4, says they select the appropriate digital tool. You know, just as a personal story, a couple of years ago when I wanted to move into areas of social media, I actually would tutor a student, but then when they graduated and they went into communication university, I then became the student, and I was paying them to teach me how to communicate, because I knew that Twitter communicated much differently than a discussion forum and other social media tools, and wanted to learn the lingo and the language associated with that so I can communicate properly in those areas. Listening to all points of view is the 5th point. We talk about the importance of that. And one example we gave in listening to all points of views so you can take in that information, and that is through our e-learning, our virtual learning environment of Brightspace D2L, where maybe we have discussion forums set up. So that the students would first, before they jump in with a response, the teacher sets up those environments so that the student first has to listen to all views, and then they're able to communicate something in the end. So therefore, they're just taking in that information to make to get a well-informed decision before they jump into that, they're putting in their input. Number 6, gains knowledge about a variety of languages. Always important. It's pretty self-explanatory. We know we're moving into a global context where students, they are globally connected, and to know what the languages, the cultures, and the different ways is not going to, that's only going to help our students. And of course, the last one is just views, voices opinions, and advocates for those ideas. It's important for our students to be able to voice their opinion and to do it in professional ways, but also it ties back to number 2, which is ask those effective questions. So as we are voicing our opinion, we're also communicating, getting those questions to go back and forth with those who we're communicating with, but also we're going to advocate for ideas. So we're not only for ourselves, but also in a room, through those effective questions, to draw that information out for the people who we're communicating with, so that we can more effectively communicate our message as well. Patrick, if you can then move to the next slide, the last one of mine. I think it's a slide. Just tell me when it pops up there, because again, I can't see it. There we go. So this conversation, there it is right there. It's a YouTube link that it is a recorded YouTube that we made from our session two weeks ago, where we took each of these 7 components and we piled them together. And we talked about it from a pedagogical connections, curriculum connections, and also defined each one of these in a little bit more detail, each of these 7 components. And I welcome you to look at those. And if we can get those up into the YouTube channel, and I'll be tweeting that out after, the hashtag BEAGC. Okay, thanks very much, Patrick.
Thank you, Andy. And I'm continuing to have some technical issues. So I believe that it's Sean sharing his screen. I'm not really sure who's sharing their screen right now. I'm going to ask them if they can just go back for one moment.
Go back, okay.
There was one question that came up for Andy. And I think it will be more for the group to think about, because Andy started talking about collaboration between teachers. And obviously we see that more and more thanks to the technology. And the question was really related to, are there any suggestions to move beyond just collaboration and teaching to create opportunities for collaboration in assessments, evaluations, etc. And so I'm not sure. In my board, I know I've seen a handful of things like that. The question would be, Andy, maybe if you can mention one, if you have one. I'm just cognizant of time, that you might want to highlight. That might be helpful.
So I'm just trying to get the question, Patrick, about where we'd use collaboration in terms of assessment, working together.
Assessment and evaluation, opportunities for collaboration in assessment and evaluation.
If I'm answering this question correctly, I have seen where teachers will come together with different exemplars, and together they will collaborate to see if they can create a common theme or a common understanding of to try to create some consistency across the classrooms within their schools and beyond, to say, for consistency across the board. So they take that collaboration component, working together to try to have a better understanding foundation when they're assessing those students, just for the sake of equity among our learners.
Great, thank you very much. And I see here, I'm gonna look to Sean to move on. We're just wrapping up. I think we have 2 or 3 more slides. Before we actually thank you for joining us as we've explored the global competencies, we had a couple of things that we need to do. I'm going to look to Sean. Did you want to do the reflection now, or do you think we want to just post that for others to use as we move forward?
Yeah, why don't we just, given that it's 9 o'clock right now, we can just leave that for later. But just quickly, what that is if you haven't used it, it's called Mentimeter. It's a website that allows you to have interactive presentations, and what that is, particularly those links, is an interactive real-time word cloud generator. So take a couple minutes, go into that link. I think we'll paste that out on Twitter and YouTube. Think about your learning that you've done over this session, all the great sessions, or the series, sorry, all these great sessions. Come up with a couple words that really capture what you've learned, or represent some things that really stood out for you. And you can put that into the link there that says reflect. And if you want to see the results, you can see it in real time. You can click on that see results link.
So thank you very much to Sean for that. As I said, we have, I think, another 1 or 2 slides. But before we get there, we certainly, we can go back for 1 second, want to make sure that we thank everyone. So if we can go back to the last slide, I think Sean's anxious, it's 9 o'clock. The slide with all the competencies that says the thank you. I do want to acknowledge specifically, we've had 1 individual join us from our team tonight for the first time ever online. So I'm going to ask Bia Meglio to wave for a moment. And then I'm going to explain to everyone who might be watching. So Bia Meglio is our education officer who works at Technology Enabled Learning Ontario. She is our contact for the Toronto area region regarding professional development, everything that has to do with the virtual learning environment, lots of other things included. But she was really instrumental in helping us get the grant to allow us to offer this virtual series. So I know she's been a great advocate for us in the Toronto area region. For that, I want to say thank you very much to Bia. And on behalf of the team, we really do appreciate all of the support and hard work that you do behind the scenes to make everything operate so smoothly. And so with that, I'm going to say, Bia, I know I'm putting you on the spot. If you wanted to say maybe a few words, it certainly would be, the floor is yours for a moment. You need to turn your microphone on though.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Perfect. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, this team has been unbelievable to work with. The dedication, week in, week out, not just of the coming on air, but all the work that happens behind the scenes to plan, just to connect with their educators, to really embody those 21st century learning skills. So much of the work is done virtually. So much of the work is done in connecting with their educators in their school boards, bringing those educators to the forefront. This was such a collaborative effort. I am so proud to be associated, even in the smallest part, with the work that this group is doing, and the participation of the of people who attended, and your willingness to take risks and share your learning. I'm humbled. I am in awe. I think it's been a fantastic experience, and I don't want to keep you any longer. Thank you so much for all of your efforts.
And so with that, there is one more slide, but before we get to it, I wanted to thank the rest of the team. Certainly, you know, we've seen Via Meglio there, Kathy Blacklock at the Ministry of Education, Jeff Cummings from Wellington Catholic, Joe Russo. Joe Russo's got his child there on his way, his mini-me, from Toronto Catholic District School Board as well. While we don't have everybody on the screen with us at most times, there's a massive amount of people in the background, and Andy's with us, Andy Quishan from Duffer and Peel, but Nuno De Castro, Kelly McDougall is on the background. Sean Hamilton joined us online today. Jen Apgar from Upper Grand District School Board is in the background. Joanne Kenny is in the background. Shelley Lowry, wave Shelley, has joined us from Toronto District School Board. Laura McKay and Tanya Williamson from the Halton District School Board certainly sent their videos in, and they sent regrets. They were very sorry they couldn't be with us tonight. And certainly myself, Patrick McQuaid from the Peel District School Board. I want to say a big thank you to everybody for joining us on this journey and for your patience as we tried new tech. It's always scary to try something new and then to have it not work or whatever the case may be. I know when we started the project, we had Sir Ken Robinson. We had a lot of technical difficulties, but we managed to overcome them. And we actually want to finish this session with another word or two from Sir Ken Robinson. So we're going to be finishing off with a brief mashup of some keynote speakers that are inspirational. And we hope that they help you to leverage modern learning and the global competencies as we move forward. And with that, Sean, I'm going to ask if I can share my screen. And I'm going to look to my colleagues sharing my screen. And I'm going to click play. And everyone have a great evening, and we will see you later.
A radically more diverse set of people to build those products.
Still needs quit.
That mechanical and lonely and boring and mad.
Sorry, Sean, what was that?
See them as things that they can tinker and turn around and twist and so forth.
Sorry.
Technologies.
We're trying.
The right way. But that's a big if. This will not happen automatically. It's only if we think of them in the right way. We really can break out of old, outmoded approaches to learning to move away from the transmission, delivery model of learning to a new model of learning where people are constantly learning by creating models, building things, exploring new ideas in collaboration with one another.
We have not too much electricity. I to come out once in a week and the rest of the month back. So I made my own basket to power lights and people houses.
Calvin represents learn by making. It takes the past, looks at it, tries to reverse engineer it.
How can we create schools that are places for learning? Well, I think the first thing we have to do, all of us, as educators, as parents, as policymakers, is to go back to the beginning question and ask ourselves, what do we believe? And to articulate those beliefs out loud, to write them down, to share them with other people. And then once we've done that as individuals, I think we need to come together as schools and articulate those beliefs together to create principles, if you will, of what we think learning looks like in our schools, in our places, in our classrooms with our kids. And then finally, once we've done that, I think we need to align our practice to our beliefs.
Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion. Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be.
And every day, everywhere, our children expect their dreams beneath our feet. And we should tread softly.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on this amazing journey of Be a Game Changer 2.0. And one last thank you to Jim Cash, ITRT, for the Peel District School Board for sharing his video with us. So thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody.
Well done, Patrick.